many Jewish people never thought that France would let it happen. And they were wrong. They didn't prepare for it.
Solange Dratler Lebovitz is talking about the Holocaust and what happened to the Jews who were French citizens at the time of the war. Jews who had moved to France for a better life, or those who had taken refuge there when Hitler came to power.
My parents read the Jewish newspaper, The Forward. They were very well informed of what happened in Poland. But even before that, when they knew, they didn't believe it would ever happen and occur in France.
The story of the Jewish people in France during Hitler's reign is a complicated one. The reason is that though the Germans overran France in 1940, they allowed a French government to operate. The Vichy Government, as it was called, deported at least 75,000 individuals, a figure that doesn't take into account the several thousands who died on French soil from starvation and disease in France's camps. Of those deported from France, only 3% survived. 6,000 children under the age of 12 did not return. But many French people, members of the clergy, and French resistors fought hard to save Jewish lives.
There were about 330,000 Jews living in France, maybe about 150,000 living in Paris. My parents were immigrants from Siget, Transylvania, in the late 1920s, and they came with 4 children to Paris. And 2 children were born, my sister Berthe, who is a year older than I am, and myself.
Solange's family, the Dratlers, had come to France because it seemed like a safe, progressive country.
Transylvania was part first of Hungary and then Romania, and there was a lot of anti-Semitism. The economy was very bad. Most of the men were leaving for the United States, Canada, or South America. Instead of going to the States, it was very difficult to do. He decided to go to France because France had lost a lot of the soldiers, close to 1 million or more. And they welcomed the workers from East European and Italy and so forth.
But soon, the French established quotas.
They say the foreigners are taking our jobs. So they had a law. A company could not hire a foreigner except for every 10 Frenchmen. So my father lost his job.
The Dratlers managed to eke out a living. Solange was born in Paris in 1930, and when she was 8, she was sent to a medical facility because she was a sickly child. She had been there for almost a year when the Germans declared war on Poland.
I was not able to go home. And of course I didn't know about the war. I was just 9 years old. But I remember that the women cried because they knew their husband, their children, and so forth were going to war. So eventually, I think in December or January, I was sent back to Paris with the group of children, and my father was waiting for me.
On May 10, 1940, the Germans attacked France, and 6 weeks later, the French surrendered, signing an armistice agreement. By an overwhelming majority, France's democratically elected members of government, its parliament, ended the country's many years of democracy by voting itself out of existence and creating a dictatorship with France's World War I hero, Marshal Philippe Pétain, as its leader. Germany annexed Alsace and Lorraine in northeast France and occupied most of northern France, while in July in the southern unoccupied part of the country, Pétain installed a puppet government in the town of Vichy. In all of the Nazi-conquered nations of Europe, France alone had a collaborationist government that was neither selected nor imposed by the Germans. Pétain was put in office by democratically elected representatives of the French people, and the majority of the country considered him to be the legitimate head of state. Without direction from Nazi Germany, the Vichy government promulgated anti-Semitic laws, which were as punishing and discriminatory as those of the Third Reich. They excluded Jews from public life and public jobs, barred them from many professions, and forced them to wear the yellow star. And they appropriated Jewish property for France, leaving most Jews destitute.
So I went to school in Paris for a short while, and the school teacher that I had was Jewish, and they fired her. And they fired doctors, lawyers, engineers, all the professionals from their job.
Then, the arrest began.
In 1941, Philippe Pétain arrested doctors, famous judges, and from then on, it was a constant arrest.
Deportations of Jews began soon after that. On January 20th, 1942, the first transport of Jews from France left for Auschwitz. Soon the French were rounding up Jews, not the native French Jews, but Jews like the Dratlers who had come to France in the 1920s and 30s. The Vichy government deported these so-called foreigners in a bizarre effort to save their native Jews. Roundups became commonplace. One of the worst happened in Paris on July 16th and 17th, 1942.
Pétain and his cohorts, they arrested about 13,000 Jews. Old people, young people, children, babies. It was infamous. They took them by bus to Le Veldiv. Le Veldiv was a velodrome d'hiver, which was like stadium, sports stadium. And they kept them there close to a week. The people had grabbed whatever they had, and there were maybe one doctor, one nurse, no hygienic facilities. And once you were there, you couldn't get off.
The Dratler family knew the police would soon be coming for them. Solange's brother and father fled to Limoges, which was part of the Free France, to escape arrest. Her brother joined the resistance movement, and the rest of the family ended up in Limoges. Solange was sent to Normandy to live with an older couple paid to take care of her.
I must say they were very good to me. They sent me to church every Sunday and to school. So I stayed with them. I went by my regular name, and I went to school. I knew also of another girl who was Jewish, but the climate of fear was such that even if you suspected that the other girls were Jewish, we were not going to ask each other if you're Jewish, because you never knew.
Solange was nearly captured once at the school by a German soldier who came looking for Jews.
So there was a German soldier who came to the door. He looked, and I had red hair and blue eyes. So, you know, I was not what they call the stereotype. So he left, and then later on I went back to my class.
Despite a few close calls, Solange's life was fairly stable. She does, however, remember June 1944 quite vividly. That was during D-Day, when the Allies invaded France to fight the Germans on the European front. Solange was living in Normandy, site of the invasion. She and other young people were sent further away from the front to stay safe.
I remember, as we were a suitcase and everything, running through the field, and I could see the bombs falling, and that always stays in my memory. The planes, the Allied planes, they had like two tails or something, and as we ran, we could see the bomb falling ahead. We thought it's falling on us, but I don't know where they were falling, and we went down on, you know, under the tree, and then we didn't see anything. We ran further.
Solange lived with the couple from 1942 until December 1944. Her parents didn't know if she was alive, but once they got word, her father came to pick her up in December, and the family was reunited. She's not sure how they all survived.
I mean, it's a miracle. Maybe because we were all separated in different places, maybe we had a better chance, because actually, while we were all separated, everybody was in danger.
Many times, Solange and her family were saved by good neighbors who warned them when the Germans were coming to arrest them. Others helped them escape, and yet others got the family false papers so they could flee Paris. Even Solange's brother was hidden by nuns who vouched for him when the Nazis came to find Jews to send to the concentration camps. But France was a contradiction.
The upper clergy, they were all for Pétain. And the newspaper with the caricature of the Jews, all these people who were, and the collaborators like Vichy, Marshal Pétain, and the others. But at the same time, you did have a lot of good French to help.